Hey everybody, Larry Lawton here. Do I have a good video for you today? This video is going to be about what rights you lose as a convicted felon. It's going to be a really good video. You're going to learn a lot on this video. Before I get started, everybody, please check me out on YouTube, member programs, Patreon, Discord. Please check all our stuff out. Our websites are below, crookeddiamond.com, the giveaway for the free cruise. Check my merch out, the book, Gangster Redemption, of course, cigars. So we are on a roll, everybody. So I thought I would just do this video so you don't mess up and you can know what your rights are. First of all, we are gonna put up a graph, and this map shows what rights are restored as a convicted felon. And you're gonna see it's all over the map. Some are, you have rights, some don't. But like in Maine and Vermont, you can even vote while you're in prison. But there's some rights and stuff, things here that happen to convicted felons that I want you to know about. This is very, very important. But we're gonna go right down the line. And you know, as a convicted felon, I could tell you it is hard. It is hard to get your rights back, and it's hard to not feel like a felon. And it goes from everywhere. So that's why I say on every one of my videos, what do I always say? Please make good choices. Don't end up in prison, or don't have even just losing your rights. You know, you can get a felony. Now, you gotta remember, we're gonna split it up. A felony and misdemeanor are two different things. A felony carries a sentence of a year in prison or more. A year in prison or more. So it's 366 days, and you go to a state prison, and it's a felony. Misdemeanors carry under 1 year in prison. And misdemeanors are anything, could be drunken disorderly, petty theft, that could be misdemeanors. But then when you get to the felony division, it could be as you know, assaults, robberies, murders, or rapes, anything like that is gonna be, of course, a felony. But you don't realize this, you can have a felony DUI. Yes, a felony DUI. If you hurt somebody in a DUI, it could be a felony DUI. If you get the third DUI, it's automatically a felony in the state of Florida. Now, every single state is different. So you gotta remember, we have state rights. That's why people get a little bit confused on what you can do in each state, because every state's different. Now, I am taking the state of Florida, which I'm in and I know. Now, and of course, there's federal. As a federal person, there's really, you know, not as many restrictions in a felony. You can literally run for president of the United States as a felon. You can run, there's no law saying you can't run for the president of the United States. Now, here's your tricky part. They had a person who ran for Congress in the state of Florida and won the primary, and he's a convicted felon down in Palm Beach, West Palm Beach area. People say he can't run. But here's the problem when you talk offices. When you are a congressman or a senator, you are representing a state. Well, that state has to certify your election. That's the problem. Usually, when the president of the United States runs, each state certifies that that election was legit and the guy was eligible to play. And, you know, whether the ballot counting with the last election or whatever it is, it does not matter. The states are the ones who certify an election, not the federal government. Now, when things go up to the federal government, all the way to the Supreme Court, it's very few laws in the Constitution on what you can and can't run for office as a convicted felon. In fact, there's only one provision in the Constitution, which is the 14th Amendment, which was after the Civil War, where they said if you had an insurrection or against the treason of some sort, you can't run for office. And they did that because of the Civil War. They didn't want people from the Confederacy to run for office after the insurrection of the Civil War. So we're gonna go down this and do this a little bit of a basic way. First of all, voting rights by convicted felon. Every state, as you can see, that's that graph, the voting rights are different in every single state. It's amazing, like in Florida, they passed in 2020 where you get your civil rights or your voting rights restored if you completed your whole sentence. Well, what they did in Florida is they put a hamper on that by saying if you didn't complete all your sentence, meaning your fines and your restitution and stuff of that nature, you can't get your rights back. Now, that's being challenged right now in court, and it should be, because there's a way then the state can start just making sure that you don't get your rights back by giving you a fine or a sentence or a restitution they know you can't pay and know you will never pay. And to me, that is so wrong, because that's not being represented. It's called taxation without being represented. And that's how the United States seceded from the Union. Literally, from the United States seceded from England. It was the Boston Tea Party. We were being taxed and we weren't getting any benefits. Well, if you can't vote, that's being what they call being taxed without representation. I am a big believer in, if you're paying taxes in this country, you should be able to vote in this country. That's all that counts to me, voting and taxes. Because how can you tell me I can't find out or ask who's representing me if I am paying my taxes? If you don't want my taxes, then I won't vote. I have mega restitutions in my case, so I can't vote. Technically, I can't vote. Now, I think that's wrong. Why should I not be able to vote, right? I'm an upstanding citizen. I'm an honorary police officer in the state of Missouri. I'm recognized in the Congress, and they're telling me I can't vote in the state of Florida or in any vote because I, Larry Lawton, have a massive restitution? That's wrong. That's being withheld my right to vote for a technicality. If you want to pay, and we pay every month something towards it, then why shouldn't you be able to vote? I don't get that. But as you can see, voting rights are one of the big things you lose as a convicted felon. And that is, to me, I know people think, who gives a shit, Larry, so you don't vote. That's not the way it works, everybody. I believe in voting. I believe in having a say on who my representative is. Some people don't, and I get that. That's up to them. That's totally up to them. I don't believe that, and I don't think that should happen. That's my opinion, and that's my vote. But that's voting. So voting rights for convicted felons are different in every state, so make sure you look up your state and what you can do. Again, if you're in Vermont and Maine, you don't gotta look up anything, because you can even vote in prison. Don't know how I believe in that. Because the only reason I don't believe in that is because then that prison and that voting block in that prison, who don't use the area, don't know what's going on in that area, literally have a say in everything that goes on, and they have no idea to even look at what's going on. When you're a person, you're voting for someone who's going to represent you, and you want a traffic light somewhere, and that person's running on getting safety in that area for school kids or whatever, how do you know about that as a felon? You're not going out looking at that area. So that's a hard one for me, but I believe if you're out in the free world, you completed your physical sentence, you should be allowed to vote. The next one, and this one is pretty wild, if you ask me. And this one is traveling abroad. It is, I cannot, Larry Lawton, as a convicted felon, cannot go to the country of Canada, my home country. And as my parents and my grandparents from Canada, I cannot go to Canada because here's the reason. The Canadian government has access to our criminal justice system records. So if they run a background check on Larry Lawton, it's come back as convicted felon. Sorry, you're denied entry into Canada. That's simple as that. I am denied entry into the country of Canada. Now, other countries might have laws like that. You're a felon in another country, you can't come, but they can't tell. How are they going to tell? They can't tell. That's the difference. Canadian government has access to our criminal justice records. So what I'm saying is, you can actually, I don't know if there's a form in every country that says you're a convicted felon, you say no, and they have no way of looking, and then you're lying, or they don't even ask that question in some forms. I don't know. I'm not a big traveler. I have traveled outside the United States many times, but usually to Caribbean or somewhere down in Cancun and Mexico, for vacations in Dominican Republic. I've never been to Europe myself. I know people are looking at me, wow, never been to Europe. I've been to the South Pacific and stuff of that nature, but I've never been to Europe. And I'll tell you what, traveling abroad to me is, listen, I get other countries' rules and laws, and I said it here with Russia, with the Grimes case, with the marijuana. In the United States, we have laws. You follow them or you go to jail, or whoever it is. If Russia had their law with the marijuana or whatever it was, I might not agree with it, but it's not my country. And you should know the laws of the countries you're going to, number one. And you should know what your record carries. In fact, what I learned about traveling abroad, even on cruises, and we're all going on a cruise, and hopefully you are too. When our cruise comes in November, they run your name and number on your address or whatever, and social security number when you go on a cruise, because I was arrested off a cruise ship. I didn't know this personally until that happened to me. So make sure your record's clear, obviously. But come on, hope you come on the cruise and have a good time with us. This one's the tough one. The felony gun rights. I, Larry Lawton, cannot own a gun, period. I am a convicted felon. I'd have to apply for my rights back from the first I have to get a presidential pardon as a federal felon to carry a firearm. I would get convicted. I did many legal cases in prison that if you're a convicted felon and you have a firearm, the federal government will fucking convict you. I had a buddy get 10 years in prison. 10 years in prison as a convicted felon for having a firearm. Not using it, not a crime, just having a gun. In fact, if you are a convicted felon and the cops pull your car over and you have a bullet, you hear what I just said? A bullet in the crevice of your car because you went shooting and it's in between the seats, and the cop finds that bullet, you, meaning me, Larry Lawton, or whoever's the felon, goes to jail for 10 years. Do not pass go, do not collect 200. You are going to jail. Now, I don't believe that should be. You can apply for rights, like in Alaska, especially survival rights and stuff of that nature. You need a gun, you're with the wildlife, everything else. So you can apply for your rights. You have to get a pardon or a clemency from the governor of that state, and then you can apply for your rights back for a federal gun right. Now, I think it might be a little bit different, but that's in a state crime. As a federal crime, since the feds convicted you, very, very hard. But they do give rights back for people in like Alaska and stuff like that. But you know, I'm just a believer in this. Part of guns is part of the United States founding. That is another thing that the United States, yes, we would be taxed without representation, and the Boston Tea Party is part of the reason the United States left the Union. But they also wanted to come here and take the guns from everybody in America. It's called the Tories. The Tories wanted to do it. That's bullshit. There's no way that I believe anybody should have their gun taken away. Now, I'm not a gun nut, everybody. I didn't even have a gun. I used a BB gun during my crimes. I'm not a gun nut. I come from New York City, and New York City is very hard on guns. We just didn't have guns. Yes, I had guns, all that kind of stuff. I wasn't a good guy, but I don't believe in taking a person's guns away. And people go, well, where do you end? In my opinion, I think anything the local police department has, you should be able to have. That's why I'm not a believer in the local police department having a tank or an armored vehicle. Then you, as a citizen, should be able to have that. If the local police department has machine guns, I think you should be allowed to have machine guns. And you go, why is that, Larry? Well, because how do you know that local police department is not a little crazy too? They're a little bit out there. They have found KKK members in the police department, in Florida. Yes, Christmas, Florida. They had KKK members, a lieutenant, and another one was an officer. These are high-ranking or assistant chief or whatever it was. How do I know the tyranny they're going to cause? You know, I believe the citizen should have the same armor, if they want, as a local police department. And you go, wow, that's pretty good. Yes. Do I think people say, well, no, they need more armor because you remember that case in California where the people had body armor and they went out shooting? Well, they got killed, didn't they? So they didn't win in that firefight. Listen, cops go to the range for a reason. Cops get training for a reason. That training is what's supposed to make them superior to a civilian, if you want to call it that. Now, there's army people, there's martial arts people, there's a lot of different people who are better equipped or whatever it is than the local police, and so be it. Doesn't make it bad. But firearms, to me, are a thing that we should have, if you want them. There's no way you shouldn't be able to protect your home. If you have a firearm in this house, and you walk in my house and I shoot you, you know what? I'm protecting my domicile, my home. And that is important to me. I think that's important. And I don't care where you are, that's what it is. You know, when people protect themselves in Alaska, it's from what? A bear or something of that nature. Well, some people considered bad bears, you know, and someone come in your house to do you harm, you should be able to have the firearm or the firepower you want to protect yourself. Oh, Larry, you just, you know, why do you need an AR-15? Well, why do the cops need an AR-15? I believe in whatever the police have, I should be able to have. Not the National Guard, not maybe the Sheriff's Department, you know, the one organization that can stop a riot or something like that. No. But I think we need to be able to at least admit that sometimes these local police departments aren't so great. And you know what? I don't think they should be more superior than us. My opinion, that's it, what I believe. Okay, employment rights. What do you lose as an employment right? Now you're gonna see there's many things around the country. Oh, you know, you can't ask a person where they've been, or if you can't put it on an employment application. Are you a convicted felon? You can't put it on there anymore. Well, when you have a blank of 10 years on a resume, what do you think they don't know? You know, you go, like Larry Lawton went away from 1996 to 2007. So I have no job history, nothing. Where do you think I was? Convicted felon. Now, I believe you shouldn't, I mean, obviously, employers and licensing is the issue sometimes. You know, and this is where I get back to the governments. They say they want to help us. Help a convicted felon get a job. Well, you cannot get a license. In the state of Florida, you cannot be admitted to the bar. Most states you can't, some you can. You have to apply for certain things. State licenses. That is what I did not know how much the state licenses are. You know, you can't get an insurance license. You can't get a real estate license if you're a convicted felon. In the state of Florida, you can't hold public office as a convicted felon. That's the state of Florida. So, I mean, I'm looking at these employment rights guys. You know, how about being a teacher or a law enforcement officer or a child care professional, and many other jobs that require a professional license that you can't get as a convicted felon. I think that's wrong, depending on your charge. Obviously, if you're a child molester, I don't want you watching children. That would be irresponsible, and I get that, but me being a robber has nothing to do with helping people. Why couldn't I be an insurance salesman, or why couldn't I have an insurance license or a real estate license? Why not? I mean, if you keep putting your foot on my neck, how do you expect me to not stay a criminal, make a living, pay my taxes, and move on? No. What happens is they put so many restrictions in people's way, you almost force them to become a criminal again. Whether it's work off the books, not pay taxes, not support the system we live in. That's why, you know, we need to change these things in a big way. Now people say, we are. Yeah, we are, but not at a pace that I believe is really beneficial. In the United States, you can't get certain public benefits. You can't get a grant. You can't get food stamps. You can't get federal cash assistance if you needed it. Why is that? Yeah, you made your mistake, but you paid your debt to society. You know, I'm all for second chances. And the only difference between a dude who's a felon and gets out of prison, for most people, is the person who's not a felon didn't get caught yet, or didn't get caught when he was younger. You know, I sit around with police chiefs and I sit around with a lot of people and judges, and they say it, Larry, I could have been in prison where you were. I mean, I just didn't get caught when I was younger. And now to hear that and then have somebody say, oh, wow, you know, you don't need your rights. I call it hypocritical. I mean, I know judges who were so bad when they were young people, and now all of a sudden they're judges, and most of them are really good, and they're not judging other people because they know their own past, or they're judging them the right way, because we do have to have judges, and I believe in the system. But, I mean, obviously, that's crazy. Now, you talk about benefits of housing and stuff. When I got out of prison, I moved to Florida. Well, I had to get an apartment because they ran a background check, and I am a convicted felon. Did you know they charged me 3 times the deposit on my apartment lease? Why? I wasn't a financial crime person. I wasn't somebody who ducked out on their bill or something. Why did Larry get charged 3 times? And I'm lucky I scraped the money together, because I had an apartment, I loved it, but I had that kind of money up front, 3 times the deposit. That's wrong. That's putting a foot on a person's neck. You're just trying to keep them down. And why? You don't want a neighborhood that has a felon in it? Now, I do understand child stuff. You know, just because the recidivism is so high, and I don't want a kid molested or abused. And someone's gonna say, well, Larry, they don't want their place robbed or something. I never robbed a house, or I never robbed an apartment complex. I robbed jewelry stores. I was a professional criminal. Now, I know you're laughing saying, wow, since you're a professional criminal, why wouldn't you rob that place? I get you. But at what point are we stopping people? Then we're starting to think about their subliminal messages. Did that guy think about it? What about if you were in a gang when you were younger and you don't go to prison for it, but you're in a gang, have gang tattoos, but you're out now, you quit. Should you not be able to live in a certain area because they won't like gangs in that area? I mean, I don't know. You cannot keep judging people for their past. You can look at their past, but to judge them and put restrictions on housing and stuff like that, to me, that is dead wrong. All of that kind of stuff, to me, the rights of people should be restored. My opinion, anybody who committed any kind of crime should have their rights restored fully, as much as you out there who have not committed a crime. Every person on this planet in the United States, in my opinion, should have their rights restored when they complete their sentence, period. Now, and I don't mean complete it by putting a fine on them for millions of dollars, knowing they can never complete that fine. And now let's just keep them out of voting, keep them out of housing, keep them out of certain jobs, just because that person can't afford the debt. That's being what they call debtor's prison, and the United States doesn't allow you to be that. You know, there's laws saying you can't be put in prison because you can't afford to pay. It's called debtor's prison. You know, that goes for child support, whatever it is. No, they're not talking about evading, and they're not talking about lying about it. If you can't afford it, they can't put you in jail just because you can't afford something. It's called debtor's prison. So hopefully we learned something there. But that's my opinion on what you lose, and I want them back. I want my rights back, and I wish more people would just start believing in that. In fact, in the state of Florida, they passed that 65% on a ballot amendment in 2020 to give their people the rights back, but then the state wanted to keep them down, so then they go, well, that means every fine and everything. And I don't think that was the spirit of the law. If you complete your sentence, you get out of prison, you're off paper, and you're on no supervised release of any sort, you should have your rights back. Period. End of story. Pay your fine? Yes. Pay it monthly, whatever you're doing. But just because you're paying it monthly and you didn't pay it totally off doesn't mean you shouldn't have your rights back. My opinion. With that said, don't get into trouble. Don't become a felon. That's really the best advice I can give anybody. Please, everybody, you know, I'm in a great place. Make good choices. I hear from a lot of you guys, and I'm really happy when you listen about making good choices and not getting hooked up into drugs or any of this crap that's going to ruin your life. So have a great day, everybody. Please make good choices, and I'll see you next time. Take care, everybody.